Hey guys, my wife is a cheating witch. She slept with my best friend and now I'm gonna ruin their lives. Watch.
The text message wasn't meant for me. I stood in my kitchen at 11:47 p.m. holding Danica's phone while she showered upstairs. The screen had lit up with a notification, and I'd glanced down expecting to see her sister's name or maybe a work email. Instead, I saw, "Can't wait to taste you again tomorrow. Same place, same time. M." My coffee mug hit the granite countertop harder than intended. 22 years of marriage. 22 years of believing I knew the woman sleeping beside me every night. The shower was still running. I had maybe 3 minutes. My fingers trembled as I scrolled through her messages. The thread with M went back months, dozens of texts. Photos I couldn't bring myself to examine closely, meeting times, hotel names, and worse, much worse, conversations about me. Colton suspects nothing. He's too busy with his boring logistics job to notice I'm actually living my life. Poor guy probably thinks I'm at yoga class. If he only knew what kind of stretching I'm really doing. The shower shut off upstairs. I deleted the notification, placed her phone exactly where I'd found it, and walked to the living room on legs that felt disconnected from my body. When Danica came downstairs 20 minutes later, hair wrapped in a towel and wearing the silk pajamas I'd bought her for Christmas, she found me reading a logistics report on my laptop. "Working late again?" she asked, settling onto the couch beside me. Her voice carried that familiar tone of gentle criticism wrapped in false concern. "Supply chain issues," I said, not looking up from the screen. "Nothing that can't wait until tomorrow." She kissed my temple, her lips still warm from the shower. "Don't work too hard. You know what they say about all work and no play." I knew exactly what she meant by play now. "Actually," I said, closing the laptop, "I've been thinking we should plan something special, a weekend getaway, just the two of us." Her smile faltered for maybe half a second. "That sounds wonderful, but this week is crazy at work." "Maybe next month? Work." Right, her job at the marketing firm that apparently required a lot of afternoon meetings at the Riverside Inn. "Of course," I said, "whenever you're ready." That night, I lay awake listening to her breathe beside me. Every soft exhale felt like another lie. Every unconscious movement felt like betrayal. When she rolled over and draped her arm across my chest in her sleep, I had to bite my tongue to keep from pushing her away. 22 years. Our daughter Eliza was 17 now, applying to colleges, planning her future. What would this do to her? What would it do to any of us? But first, I needed to know everything, every detail, every person involved, every lie she'd told. I needed to know exactly who my wife really was. The next morning, Danica announced she'd be working late again. "Big presentation tomorrow," she said, buttering her toast with the same casual efficiency she'd been using to butter her lies. "Probably won't be home until 10. "I'll save you some dinner," I said, reading the financial section of the newspaper like I had every morning for the past 15 years. "You're the best," she said, kissing the top of my head. "I don't know what I did to deserve you." I waited until her car disappeared around the corner before I called in sick to work. In 22 years at Morrison Logistics, I'd used maybe 6 sick days total. My supervisor, Karen, didn't even question it. "Take care of yourself, Colton. You never take time off." If only she knew what kind of time I needed to take. I drove to Best Buy and paid cash for a GPS tracker small enough to hide under a car bumper. The teenage clerk asked if I needed help installing it. "It's for my teenager," I lied smoothly. "Want to make sure she's driving safely." He nodded knowingly. Smart parent. These kids think they're invincible. The irony wasn't lost on me. Installing the tracker took less than 5 minutes. Danica's white Honda Accord sat in our driveway, innocent as fresh snow. I crawled underneath and attached the magnetic device to the rear axle housing. My hands were steady. My breathing was controlled. 22 years of marriage had apparently taught me how to lie with my body as easily as she lied with her words. The rest of the day, I sat in my home office and watched a small blue dot move across my phone screen. At 2:17 p.m., the dot left her office building. At 2:31 p.m., it stopped at the Riverside Inn on Highway 9. It stayed there until 4:45 p.m., 2 hours and 14 minutes, enough time for a very thorough presentation. When Danica came home at 10:23 p.m., 43 minutes later than she'd promised, she looked appropriately tired. Her hair was slightly mussed in a way that suggested a long day at the office. Her makeup needed touching up. Her blouse was wrinkled. All very convincing details for someone who hadn't been watching a GPS tracker all afternoon. "How was the presentation?" I asked from the kitchen, where I was loading the dishwasher. "Exhausting," she said, kicking off her heels. "But I think we landed the account." Mr. Peterson seemed impressed. "Mr. Peterson," I repeated. "I don't think you've mentioned him before." "Oh, he's new. Just transferred from the Dallas office." The lie came so easily, so naturally, that I almost admired the skill involved. "Well, congratulations. You've been working so hard lately." "Someone has to," she said, and there was an edge to her voice I hadn't noticed before. Or maybe I'd been choosing not to notice it. Bills don't pay themselves. I made an appropriate noise of agreement and finished loading the dishwasher. When I turned around, she was scrolling through her phone, smiling at something on the screen. "Anything interesting?" I asked. "Just work stuff," she said, quickly turning the phone face down. "You know how it is." I knew exactly how it was. That weekend, while Danica attended another work emergency, this one requiring her presence from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. on a Saturday, I drove to the office supply store and bought a small digital camera designed for home security. The kind of camera that could easily be hidden in a car's interior and record everything that happened inside. The installation required me to partially disassemble the dashboard, but I'd always been good with my hands. In my previous life, the one that ended 4 days ago when I read a text message that wasn't meant for me, I'd enjoyed working on cars. It was meditative, logical, fix the problem, restore function. Everything works the way it's supposed to. If only marriage were that simple. The camera was the size of a quarter and virtually invisible once installed. It would record continuously and save everything to a small SD card. Battery life, 72 hours of continuous recording. More than enough for what I needed. Monday morning, I replaced the SD card with a fresh one and uploaded the weekend's recordings to my laptop. The first few files showed Danica driving alone, singing along to the radio, checking her makeup in the rearview mirror. Normal wife behavior. Then came Saturday afternoon. The blue dot on my GPS tracker had stopped at Pine Grove Park, a location that didn't match any of her usual cover stories. The video showed why. A silver BMW pulled up beside her car in the otherwise empty parking lot. A man got out. Early 30s, athletic build, dark hair, confident walk. He approached her car and got into the passenger seat. For the next 15 minutes, I watched my wife of 22 years betray our marriage in high definition. Their conversation was too quiet for the microphone to pick up clearly, but their body language spoke volumes. Intimate touches, familiar gestures, the comfortable physical ease of two people who'd done this many times before. When things progressed beyond conversation, I stopped the video. I'd seen enough, but I also realized I needed to see more. Not more of the physical betrayal, that was burned into my memory already, but more of the context. Who was this man? How long had this been going on? Who else knew? Because someone always knows. In my experience, affairs never happen in complete isolation. There are friends who cover, coworkers who provide alibis, someone who helps make the lies feel justified. I needed to find that someone. The GPS tracker revealed patterns over the next week. Tuesday, another meeting at Pine Grove Park, 3:15 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. Thursday, the Riverside Inn again, 2 p.m. to 4:45 p.m. Saturday, a new location, the parking lot behind Mike's Fitness Center on Industrial Boulevard. Mike's Fitness Center. That explained the athletic build. I drove by the gym during my lunch break. The BMW was parked in the employees section, close to the building. A small placard by the front door listed the staff. Marcus Blaine, Personal Training Specialist. Marcus Blaine. Now the mysterious M had a full name. I sat in my car across the street and watched people come and go. Young mothers pushing strollers. Businessmen in expensive workout clothes. Teenagers with energy to burn. And my wife. Danica's Honda pulled into the lot at 2:47 p.m. She didn't go inside the gym. Instead, she walked around to the employee entrance at the back of the building. Marcus Blaine met her there, still wearing his trainer's uniform, a tight-fitting polo shirt with the gym's logo and athletic shorts that showed off legs like tree trunks. They kissed before the door closed behind them. Not a friendly peck. Not a business greeting. A kiss that spoke of ownership and familiarity and complete disregard for the marriage vows Danica had taken 22 years ago. I drove home in a haze of clarity. Everything made sense now. The late nights at work, the sudden interest in fitness. She'd joined a gym 3 months ago, claiming she wanted to get in shape for our anniversary. The new clothes. The way she'd been picking fights over minor things, as if she were trying to justify something to herself. As if she were building a case for why our marriage deserved to be destroyed. But I still didn't know who else was involved. And I needed to know everything before I decided what to do with the information. That evening, while Danica was in the shower, another long shower, I noticed, I went through her purse. Credit card receipts from restaurants I'd never been to. A business card for a divorce attorney, and a small piece of paper with 2 phone numbers written in her handwriting. One number belonged to Marcus Blaine. I'd found his information online earlier. The other number belonged to Caleb Warren, my best friend, my coworker, the man who'd been best man at our wedding. I stared at that piece of paper for a long time. The shower was still running upstairs. Danica was probably thinking about Marcus while the hot water ran over her skin. Maybe planning their next meeting. Maybe laughing about how oblivious her husband was. But Caleb? What was Caleb's role in this? I took a photo of the paper with my phone, then put everything back exactly as I'd found it. When Danica came downstairs, she found me watching the news in the living room. "Anything interesting happening in the world?" she asked, settling beside me on the couch. "The usual," I said. "Wars, politics, people lying to each other." She glanced at me sharply. "You sound cynical tonight." "Just tired. Long day at work." "You should talk to Caleb about reducing your workload. You're too stressed lately." There it was. Caleb's name dropped into the conversation like a casual suggestion. But nothing was casual anymore. Every word was calculated. Every gesture was performance. "Maybe I will," I said. Caleb's always been good at managing stress. The next day, I called Caleb and suggested we grab lunch. Just the two of us, like we used to do before our lives got so busy. He seemed surprised, but pleased. "Hell yes," he said. "It's been too long." "How about that new place on 5th Street? I heard their steaks are incredible." We met at 12:30. Caleb looked good, better than he had in months. New clothes, expensive watch, confident smile. The kind of look that comes with extra money or a clear conscience. Maybe both. "So what's the occasion?" he asked after we'd ordered. "You sounded weird on the phone." Can a man buy his best friend lunch without an ulterior motive? You can, but you don't usually. You're the most routine-oriented person I know. Tuesday lunch meetings aren't part of your routine. He was right. I'd always been predictable, reliable. The kind of man who did what he said he'd do and said what he meant. The kind of man whose wife could cheat on him for months without worrying about getting caught. "I've been thinking about making some changes," I said. "Danica's been encouraging me to be more spontaneous." Something flickered across Caleb's face. A micro-expression that lasted maybe half a second, but I caught it. Guilt, recognition, fear. "Changes are good," he said carefully. "What kind of changes?" "Nothing dramatic. Just mixing things up a bit, being less predictable." "Predictable isn't necessarily bad," Caleb said. "Some people appreciate predictability, stability, knowing what to expect. And some people find it boring." "Has Danica said you're boring?" The question was too quick, too pointed, as if he already knew the answer. "Not in so many words," I said. "But I get the feeling she's looking for something more exciting in her life." Caleb took a long drink of his beer. When he set the glass down, his hand was trembling slightly. "Marriage is hard," he said finally. "Even good marriages go through rough patches. Maybe you two should consider counseling." "Interesting suggestion. Have you been talking to Danica about our marriage?" Another micro-expression. This one lasted longer. Pure panic, quickly suppressed. "We're all friends," he said. "Sometimes she mentions things, nothing specific, just general stuff about how busy you've been at work." "What kind of things does she mention?" "Jesus, Colton, I don't know. Normal stuff." "She worries about you working too much. She thinks you need more hobbies or something." "Hobbies like what?" "I don't know. Exercise, sports, something to help you unwind." She suggested I join a gym. That's not a bad idea. Physical fitness is important, especially at our age. Any particular gym you'd recommend? Caleb's face went pale. He pushed food around his plate without eating it. There are lots of good gyms around here, he said. I'm sure Danica could recommend one. She joined that place on Industrial Boulevard a few months ago, right? What's it called? He knew exactly what it was called. But he was giving me the chance to pretend I didn't know he knew. Mike's Fitness Center, I said. Right, Mike's. She seems to like it there. I'm sure she does. We finished lunch in relative silence. Caleb paid the check, unusual for him, and we walked to our cars together. Colton, he said as I was unlocking my door. Whatever's going on, just remember that marriage is about forgiveness. People make mistakes. Good people can do stupid things without meaning to hurt anyone. Is that your professional opinion, Doctor? Warren, it's my opinion as someone who cares about both of you. Both of us. You and Danica, you're my friends. I want you to be happy. All three of us, you mean? What? You said you care about both of us. But there are three people in this conversation, aren't there? You, me, and Danica. So you care about all three of us. Caleb stared at me for a long moment. I care about everyone involved, he said finally. Everyone involved in what exactly? In your marriage, Colton. Jesus, what's gotten into you? I got into my car without answering. As I drove away, I watched Caleb in my rearview mirror. He stood beside his car for a full minute, phone pressed to his ear, talking animatedly to someone. I didn't need to guess who he was calling. That evening, Danica seemed agitated. She kept checking her phone and jumping at small noises. When Eliza asked about her plans for the weekend, Danica snapped at her for no reason. Sorry, honey, she said immediately. I'm just stressed about work. What's going on at work? Eliza asked. She was 17, but perceptive beyond her years. Too perceptive sometimes. Nothing you need to worry about. Adult stuff. Adult stuff like what? Are you getting fired? No, I'm not getting fired. God, Eliza, can't I have a bad day without being interrogated? Eliza looked hurt. I was just asking? Well, don't. Some things are private. I caught Eliza's eye across the dinner table and gave her a slight smile. She smiled back, but I could see the confusion there. Danica's behavior was unusual, and Eliza had noticed. After dinner, while Danica was on another long phone call, work crisis, she'd explained, I helped Eliza with her calculus homework. Is Mom okay? She asked quietly. She's been acting weird lately. How so? I don't know, secretive. And she keeps getting text messages that make her smile, but when I ask who they're from, she says it's just work stuff. But work stuff doesn't usually make people smile like that. Smart kid, too smart. Sometimes adults have complicated situations they're dealing with, I said. It doesn't necessarily mean anything's wrong. But something is wrong, isn't it? I looked at my daughter, 17 years old, getting ready to leave for college, still believing the world made sense and people were basically good. In a few months, she'd be on her own, making her own decisions about trust and love and marriage. I hope not, I said. But if there is, we'll figure it out together. Promise? Promise. That night I lay awake planning. Not revenge. Not yet. Just information gathering. I needed to know the full scope of what I was dealing with before I decided how to respond. The next morning, while Danica was at her early meeting, the GPS tracker showed her car at Marcus Blaine's apartment complex. I drove to Eliza's school and checked her out for a dentist appointment that didn't exist. Dad, what's going on? She asked as we drove away from the school. My teeth are fine. I need to ask you some questions, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Can you do that? Am I in trouble? No. But I think your mother might be. I pulled into an empty parking lot and turned off the engine. For a moment, we sat in silence. What kind of trouble? Eliza asked finally. The kind that could change our family forever. I told her everything. Not the graphic details, but the essential facts. The text messages, the GPS tracking, the meetings with Marcus Blaine, Caleb's involvement. Eliza listened without interrupting. When I finished, she stared out the windshield for a long time. I knew something was wrong, she said finally. But I thought maybe you guys were just having normal marriage problems. This isn't normal. What are you going to do? I don't know yet, but I need to ask you something, and I need you to think carefully before you answer. Okay. Have you seen your mother with anyone? Any men you didn't recognize? Any situations that seemed strange? Eliza was quiet for almost a minute. Last month, she said slowly, I was at Starbucks with Emma and I saw Mom's car in the parking lot at that hotel on Highway 9, the Riverside Inn. I thought it was weird because she was supposed to be at work, so I walked over to see if she needed help or something. What did you see? She was sitting in the passenger seat. There was a man in the driver's seat. I couldn't see his face clearly, but they were talking really close together. Like really close. And she was laughing in this way. She never laughs at home anymore. Did you talk to her about it? I tried to. That night at dinner, I mentioned seeing her car at the hotel, and she got really angry. She said I was mistaken, that she'd never been there, and I needed to mind my own business. But you knew what you saw. I knew what I saw. And I knew she was lying. We sat in silence for another few minutes. There's something else, Eliza said. Last week, Uncle Caleb called the house when you were at work. Mom thought I was upstairs, but I heard part of their conversation. What did you hear? He said something about being careful, that you were asking questions. And Mom said something about how you'd never figure it out because you trust people too much. The words hit me like physical blows. 22 years of marriage. 22 years of believing I knew this woman. 22 years of being the fool who trusted people too much. Dad? Eliza's voice was small. Are you going to divorce her? I don't know. Are you going to do something crazy? I looked at my daughter, 17 years old. Still innocent enough to believe that the adults in her life would handle difficult situations with wisdom and restraint. No, I said. I'm not going to do anything crazy. But as we drove back to her school, I realized I was lying. Because what I was planning wasn't crazy, it was methodical, it was thorough, and it was completely sane. That was what made it so dangerous. Over the next week, I gathered more information. I hired a private investigator, a woman named Ava Moran, who specialized in marital cases. She was expensive but discreet, and she provided exactly the kind of documentation I needed. Photographs of Danica and Marcus together at various locations. Credit card records showing charges at hotels and restaurants, phone records proving the frequency of their contact. But the most valuable thing Ava provided was background information on Marcus Blaine. Your wife's boyfriend has an interesting history, she said when we met at a coffee shop across town. 2 previous relationships with married women. Both ended badly. How badly? The first woman divorced her husband and lost custody of her kids when her ex-husband proved she'd been stealing from their joint accounts to pay for Marcus's lifestyle. The second woman's husband filed attack charges against Marcus, but they were dropped when the husband suddenly left town. Left town? Packed up one day and disappeared, left everything behind. Job, house, friends. Very strange behavior for a man with deep roots in the community. I stared at the photographs spread across the table between us. Marcus and Danica kissing in a restaurant. Marcus and Danica entering a hotel together. Marcus and Danica in her car, his hand on her thigh. What happened to the husband who disappeared? Nobody knows. He cleaned out his bank accounts and vanished. Police investigated but found no evidence of foul play. Officially, he abandoned his former life voluntarily. Unofficially, Marcus Blaine has a reputation for being very persuasive when people get in his way. Ava slid another folder across the table. There's something else you should know. Your wife has been meeting with a divorce attorney. She's planning to file papers next month. I opened the folder. Inside were copies of financial documents I recognized. Bank statements, investment records, property deeds, all the paperwork necessary to dissolve a 22-year marriage. How did you get these? The attorney's office has a very chatty paralegal who likes to drink at the bar across from my office. Amazing what people will tell you when they think you're just a friendly stranger. What is she planning to ask for? Everything. Full custody of your daughter, half of all assets, including your retirement accounts, alimony, and she's claiming emotional misuse. Emotional misuse? According to her statement, you've been controlling and manipulative throughout the marriage. She's documented incidents going back years, late nights at work that made her feel neglected, times you questioned her whereabouts, occasions when you were allegedly verbally aggressive. I read through the document Ava had somehow obtained. Every normal disagreement we'd ever had was reframed as evidence of my abusive behavior. Every time I'd asked about her schedule was presented as controlling surveillance. Every moment of marital tension was transformed into proof that I was an unfit husband and father. She's been planning this for months, I said. Probably longer. This level of documentation takes time to compile. And Caleb Warren? Your coworker has been providing corroborating statements about your alleged behavior at work. Angry outbursts, inappropriate comments about your wife. General instability. I set the papers down carefully. My hands were steady, but my vision was starting to narrow around the edges. There's one more thing, Ava said quietly. Marcus Blaine has been encouraging your wife to accelerate the timeline. He wants her to file for divorce immediately and push for an emergency custody order. Why the rush? Because he's in financial trouble. His business is failing, and he owes money to some very unpleasant people. He needs access to your wife's assets as quickly as possible. So this isn't about love. This is about money. And your wife either doesn't realize it or she doesn't care. I gathered the photographs and documents and put them back in their folders. 22 years of marriage, reduced to evidence in a divorce case I didn't know was coming. What do you need from me? I asked. That depends on what you want to accomplish. If you want to fight the divorce, we can use this information to expose their affair and discredit her claims of misuse. If you want to negotiate a better settlement, we can leverage what we know about Marcus's financial situation. What if I want something else? Ava studied my face for a long moment. I specialize in gathering information, Mr. Harris. What people do with that information is their choice, but I would strongly advise you to consult with an attorney before making any major decisions. Of course. And Mr. Harris, be very careful around Marcus Blaine. Based on his history, he doesn't respond well to being cornered. That night, I sat in my home office with all the evidence spread across my desk. Photographs, financial records, legal documents, GPS tracking data, video recordings. The complete story of my marriage's destruction, documented in excruciating detail. Danica was downstairs watching television. Eliza was in her room doing homework. Normal family evening, except nothing was normal anymore. I could file for divorce first, using Ava's evidence to protect my assets and ensure custody of Eliza. I could confront Danica and demand an explanation. I could expose the affair to our friends and family. All reasonable responses to an unreasonable situation. But as I stared at the photographs of my wife with Marcus Blaine, I realized I didn't want to be reasonable. I wanted to be thorough. I wanted them to understand exactly what they'd destroyed, and I wanted them to pay for it. The next morning, I called in sick to work again. Then I drove to a storage facility on the outskirts of town and rented a small unit under a false name. Cash payment, no questions asked. Over the next several days, I moved things there. Equipment, supplies, documents, everything I thought I might need for what was coming. I also began making other preparations. I opened a new bank account at a different institution and began transferring money in small amounts that wouldn't trigger any automatic notifications. I researched legal procedures for various scenarios. I studied Marcus Blaine's daily routine until I knew it better than he did, and I waited. The opportunity came on a Thursday afternoon. Danica announced she'd be working late again. "Client dinner," she said, kissing my cheek before she left. "Don't wait up." The GPS tracker showed her car heading toward Marcus's apartment complex. Perfect. I drove to Mike's fitness center and waited in the parking lot. At 6:30 p.m., Marcus finished his last training session and walked to his BMW. He was alone. I followed him at a distance as he drove home. He lived in an upscale apartment complex with a gated entrance, but the security was more for show than substance. I waited until another resident opened the gate, then slipped in behind them. Marcus's apartment was on the second floor, number 237. I could see light coming from the windows as I climbed the exterior stairs. I knocked on the door. "Who is it?" he called from inside. "Maintenance," I said. "We had a report about a water leak from your unit." The door opened, revealing Marcus in gym clothes and a towel around his neck. He was bigger than he looked in the photographs. More muscular, more physically intimidating, but he wasn't expecting violence, which gave me the only advantage I needed. "There's no water leak," he said, looking confused. "I know," I said, and hit him in the throat with my fist. He went down hard, gasping for air and clutching his neck. I stepped inside and closed the door behind me. "My name is Colton Harris. I said as he struggled to breathe. I think you know that name. His eyes went wide with recognition and terror. Don't try to talk yet, I said, pulling a chair from his kitchen table and setting it in the middle of the living room. Your larynx needs a few minutes to recover. I bound his hands and feet with zip ties I'd brought for the purpose, then dragged him over to the chair and propped him up. He was a big man, but adrenaline makes people surprisingly strong. Comfortable? I asked. Good. We need to have a conversation about my wife. Marcus tried to speak, but only managed a hoarse croak. I said don't try to talk yet. Just listen. I pulled out my phone and showed him some of the photographs Ava had taken. Marcus and Danica kissing. Marcus and Danica entering a hotel. Marcus and Danica in her car. Interesting hobby you have, I said. Seducing married women. Tell me, is it the challenge that excites you? Or just the money? Marcus managed to whisper. I don't know what you're talking about. Really? That's disappointing. I was hoping we could have an honest conversation. I showed him another photograph. This one showed him leaving his bank, carrying what looked like a large deposit bag. Ava Moran is very thorough, I said. Did you know she followed you to 3 different banks last week? Interesting pattern of activity for someone who claims to be financially struggling. Marcus's face went pale. Here's what I think happened, I continued. You seduced my wife, convinced her to give you access to our joint accounts, and you've been systematically draining our savings. Am I close? Colton, listen to me. Mr. Harris, we're not friends. Mr. Harris, this isn't what you think. Danica and we have feelings for each other, real feelings. Feelings? How romantic. Is that what you told the other 2 wives? Marcus stared at me. What other wives? Jennifer Walsh, married to Robert Walsh, who disappeared after filing attack charges against you. And Susan Chen, who lost custody of her children when her husband proved she'd been stealing money to support your lifestyle. I never what? Never seduced married women for money? Never encouraged them to destroy their families? Never made their husbands disappear when they became inconvenient? Robert Walsh left town on his own. I never touched him, but you thought about it. Marcus didn't answer, which was answer enough. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to end your relationship with my wife. You're going to return every penny you've taken from our accounts. And you're going to leave town. Tonight. And if I don't, then you'll find out what happened to Robert Walsh. Marcus stared at me for a long moment. You're bluffing? Am I? I reached into my jacket and pulled out a small digital recorder. I pressed play. Marcus's voice filled the room. Sometimes people need help understanding that their marriages are over. Sometimes they need encouragement to start fresh somewhere else. It was from a conversation Ava had recorded at the gym, where Marcus was talking to another trainer about problem husbands. Insurance, I said, turning off the recorder. Ava is very good at her job. What do you want? I told you what I want. End it with Danica, return the money, leave town. She won't just let me go. She's already talking about divorce. She's planning to take everything. Then you'd better convince her to change her plans. I cut the zip ties binding his hands and feet. Marcus rubbed his wrists, watching me carefully. You have 24 hours, I said. If my wife contacts you after tomorrow night, if any more money disappears from our accounts, if you're still in town this weekend, then you and I will have another conversation. And next time I won't be as diplomatic. I walked to the door, then turned back. Oh, and Marcus? If anything happens to me, if I have an accident, if I disappear, if I suddenly decide to leave town like Robert Walsh, then copies of everything I know about you go to the police, the FBI, and every newspaper in the state. Are we clear? Crystal clear. Excellent. Enjoy your evening. I left him there, rubbing his throat and staring at the door I'd just walked through. The drive home was surreal. I felt calm in a way I hadn't experienced in weeks. Focused. Like I'd finally started taking action instead of just gathering information. Danica's car was in the driveway when I arrived. She was in the kitchen making herself a cup of tea. How was your client dinner? I asked. Long, she said without looking at me. Mr. Peterson is very demanding. I'm sure he is. She glanced at me sharply. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Just agreeing with you. but something had changed in her demeanor. She seemed nervous, distracted. She kept checking her phone, frowning when no messages appeared. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Fine, just tired. Maybe you should take a break from all these late meetings. You've been working so hard lately." "I can handle my own schedule, thank you." There was an edge to her voice I hadn't heard before. Defensive, almost aggressive. "Of course you can. I'm just concerned about you." "Well, don't be. I'm perfectly capable of managing my own life." She stomped upstairs, leaving her tea cooling on the counter. 20 minutes later, I heard her on the phone in our bedroom. Her voice was muffled, but the tone was agitated, worried. When she came back downstairs, she announced she had a headache and was going to bed early. "Sweet dreams," I said. She didn't respond. The next morning, Danica seemed distracted during breakfast. She kept checking her phone and barely touched her coffee. "Big day at work?" I asked. "What? Oh, yes, very busy. Any more client dinners this week?" "I don't know, maybe. It depends on how the Peterson account develops." But her phone remained silent throughout breakfast. No texts from mysterious clients. No calls about urgent meetings. At 9:30 a.m., after Danica left for work, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? This is Marcus." His voice was hoarse, probably from our conversation the night before. "I told you 24 hours. I know, but there's a problem." "What kind of problem?" "Danica won't listen to me. I tried to break things off this morning, and she accused me of seeing someone else. She's threatening to tell everyone about us if I don't explain what's going on." "That sounds like your problem, not mine." "She's talking about confronting you directly. She thinks you found out somehow, and she wants to get ahead of it." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "Get ahead of it how?" "She's going to file for divorce immediately. Emergency custody." "She's already called her lawyer." "When?" "This afternoon. She's meeting with him at 2 o'clock. I hung up without saying goodbye. Emergency custody. That meant Eliza. That meant Danica was planning to claim I was an immediate threat to our daughter's safety. I called Ava Moran. "We have a problem," I said when she answered. "I'm listening." "Danica's accelerating her timeline. She's filing for divorce this afternoon and asking for emergency custody." "On what grounds?" "Probably the same emotional misuse claims she's been building, but now she'll say the situation has escalated. That I've become dangerous." "Have you become dangerous?" "That depends on your definition. Mr. Harris, please tell me you haven't done anything reckless." "I had a conversation with Marcus Blaine last night. A very direct conversation." "How direct?" "Direct enough to convince him to end his relationship with my wife." "Jesus Christ, did you threaten him?" "I explained the consequences of continuing his current course of action." "That's the same thing. And now your wife is panicking because her boyfriend suddenly wants out. What do I do?" "You get a lawyer, right now, today, before she files those papers. I have a better idea." "No, you don't. Whatever you're thinking, it's a bad idea. Trust me. I'm going to end this." "Mr. Harris, thank you for your help, Ava. Send me your final bill." I hung up and drove home. The house was empty. Danica at work, Eliza at school. I had maybe 4 hours before everything changed forever. 4 hours to finish what I'd started. I went upstairs to our bedroom and opened Danica's jewelry box. Hidden in the back, behind her grandmother's pearls, was a small key I'd seen her hide there months ago. I'd assumed it was for a safety deposit box. I was wrong. The key opened a filing cabinet in her home office, a cabinet I'd never thought to examine because I'd respected her privacy. Inside were documents that painted a very different picture of the woman I'd been married to for 22 years. Bank statements for accounts I didn't know existed, correspondence with multiple divorce attorneys going back 8 months, detailed financial records showing systematic transfers from our joint accounts to accounts in her name only, and a folder labeled insurance. Inside that folder were photographs, dozens of them. Pictures of me taken without my knowledge over the past several months. Me working late at the office, looking stressed and tired. Me arguing with a coworker about a delayed shipment. Me raising my voice at Eliza when she missed her curfew. Every photograph was carefully selected to make me look angry, unstable, potentially violent. But the most damaging items were at the bottom of the folder. Medical records showing Danica had been treated for anxiety and depression, conditions she'd never mentioned to me, and a statement from her doctor confirming that her symptoms were consistent with emotional misuse. She'd been building a case against me for 8 months, long before Marcus Blaine entered the picture. The affair wasn't the cause of her divorce plans, it was just a convenient distraction. I sat in her office chair, surrounded by evidence of the most elaborate betrayal I could have imagined. 22 years of marriage, and my wife had been planning my destruction for most of the last year. The sound of a car in the driveway interrupted my thoughts. I looked out the window and saw Caleb's Mercedes pulling up to the house. I quickly put everything back in the filing cabinet and went downstairs to answer the door. "Colton," he said when I opened it, "we need to talk." "About what?" "About the fact that you've lost your damn mind." I stepped aside to let him in. "I don't know what you mean." "Marcus Blaine called me this morning. He said you broke into his apartment and threatened him." "Did he? That's interesting." "Interesting? Colton, what the hell are you doing?" "I'm protecting my family." "By threatening people? By stalking your wife? By acting like a psychopath?" I closed the front door and turned to face him. "How long have you known?" "Known what?" "About Danica and Marcus, about the divorce plans, about the money she's been stealing from our accounts." Caleb's face went pale. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you do. You've been helping her build a case against me for months, providing statements about my alleged behavior at work, covering for her when she needs alibis." "Colton, you're paranoid. You're seeing conspiracies that don't exist." "Am I? Then explain this." I pulled out my phone and showed him one of the photographs from Danica's filing cabinet. It was a picture of me at work, taken through the office window. The timestamp showed it was taken on a day when Caleb and I had worked late together. "Explain how someone got this photograph without inside help." Caleb stared at the image for a long moment. "Maybe someone was just what? Just happened to be hiding in the parking lot with a telephoto lens? Just happened to know exactly when I'd be working late?" "I don't know." "You don't know because you're the one who told her when to take it." Caleb sat down heavily on the couch. "You don't understand the situation. Then explain it to me." "Danica came to me 6 months ago. She was scared. She said you'd been acting strange, getting angry over little things, questioning her whereabouts, making her feel like a prisoner in her own home." "And you believed her?" "She showed me bruises, Colton, on her arms. She said you'd grabbed her during an argument." I stared at him. "I've never laid a hand on my wife." "She had photographs, medical records, documentation going back months. All fake." "How do you know?" "Because I know what I've done and what I haven't done, and I know I've never hurt Danica." People don't always remember things the way they actually happened, especially when they're under stress. "So, you helped her document my alleged misuse." "I helped her protect herself, and Eliza. By encouraging her to have an affair?" "I never encouraged anything." "I didn't even know about Marcus until last week." "But you knew about the divorce plans." Caleb nodded reluctantly. "She asked me to be a witness, to testify about your behavior at work." "What behavior?" "Your temper, the way you've been lately. Angry, unpredictable." "I've been angry because my wife has been lying to me for months. I've been unpredictable because my best friend has been helping her destroy my life." "She's not trying to destroy your life. She's trying to save her own." "From what? From a husband who worked 60 hours a week to provide for his family? From a man who never cheated, never lied, never raised his voice, except when his 17-year-old daughter came home drunk at 2 in the morning? From a man who's been slowly changing into someone she doesn't recognize? The only thing that's changed is that I finally figured out what she was doing." We stared at each other across the living room. 25 years of friendship, reduced to this moment of complete understanding. He'd chosen her over me. The betrayal was complete. "What happens now?" Caleb asked. "Now. Now I finish what all of you started." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm done being the victim in this story." "Colton, whatever you're planning, don't do it. Think about Eliza. Think about your future." "I am thinking about Eliza. I'm thinking about the fact that her mother is planning to convince a judge that her father is an abusive monster. I'm thinking about the fact that she'll grow up believing I abandoned her, when the truth is I was driven away by lies. So fight it in court. Hire a lawyer. Prove your innocence." "With what evidence?" "You'll testify that I'm unstable, Danica's doctor will confirm that she's been emotionally misused. Marcus will probably claim I threatened him. The photographs will show an angry, potentially violent man. Then what's your alternative? My alternative is to make sure the truth comes out. All of it. How? I didn't answer. Instead, I walked to the window and looked out at the street where I'd lived for 15 years, where I'd coached Eliza's softball team, where I'd helped neighbors with their yard work, where I'd believed I was building a life worth living. You should leave now, I said without turning around. Colton, leave. And tell Danica that if she wants to destroy our family, she'd better be prepared for the consequences. What consequences? She'll find out. After Caleb left, I sat in my living room and made a list. Everything I needed to do. Everything I needed to prepare. Everything I needed to set in motion before Danica filed her divorce papers. Then I drove to the storage facility and began loading equipment into my car. At 2:30 p.m., while Danica was meeting with her divorce attorney, I was setting up surveillance equipment at the abandoned farmhouse I'd rented under a false name 3 weeks earlier. The property was 20 miles outside town, accessible only by a dirt road that wound through dense woods, perfect for privacy. The farmhouse had been empty for years, but the structure was sound. No electricity, but I'd brought a generator. No running water, but I wouldn't need it for long. I spent the afternoon preparing the space, setting up cameras, testing equipment, arranging furniture, making sure everything would be exactly right for the conversation I was planning to have. At 6 p.m., I drove back to town and parked across the street from Mike's fitness center. Marcus's BMW was in the employee lot. He was working his regular shift, training clients, pretending his world hadn't changed overnight. But it had changed. And soon, he'd understand exactly how much. At 8:30 p.m., the gym closed. Marcus walked to his car alone, looking nervous and checking his phone repeatedly. Still no messages from Danica, probably. She was busy with lawyers and custody papers. I followed him home, staying several cars behind. When he pulled into his apartment complex, I waited in the street until I saw lights come on in his second-floor windows. Then I called his cell phone. "We need to meet," I said when he answered. "I told you I'd end it with Danica. I'm trying, but she won't listen." "That's not good enough. What do you want from me?" "I want you to disappear. Tonight, like Robert Walsh." "I can't just disappear. I have a life here." "You had a life here. Now you have a choice. Leave voluntarily or leave involuntarily." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm offering you an opportunity. Meet me at the old farmhouse on Cemetery Road in 1 hour. Come alone. We'll discuss your options. I'm not meeting you anywhere. Then I'll come to you, and this time I won't be as polite." I hung up and drove to the farmhouse to wait. He arrived at 10:15 p.m., 15 minutes late. His BMW looked out of place on the dirt road, like a luxury item dropped in a junkyard. I watched from the shadows as he approached the house. He was carrying something in his right hand, a tool, probably. Smart man, but not smart enough. I'd positioned myself behind an old oak tree about 50 feet from the house. When Marcus reached the front porch, I called out to him. "That's far enough." He spun around, pointing his weapon in my direction. "Where are you?" "Safe." "Put the tool down, Marcus." "Not a chance." "Then we have a problem." "The only problem here is you. You're crazy if you think I'm going to let you threaten me." "I'm not threatening you. I'm negotiating with you." "With what?" "You have nothing I want." "I have information about Robert Walsh." Marcus went very still. "Oh, what kind of information?" "The kind that explains what really happened to him." "He left town." "He left town because you helped him understand that staying wasn't an option. Just like I'm helping you understand the same thing. You don't know what you're talking about. I know you've done this before. I know you have a system. I know Robert Walsh is buried somewhere in the woods outside Millerville." "That's insane." "Is it? Then explain why his credit card stopped being used the day after he confronted you. Explain why his car was found abandoned at the bus station with his wallet and keys still inside. Explain why a man with deep family roots and a successful business would leave everything behind without a word to anyone." Marcus lowered his tool slightly. "Even if that were true, you couldn't prove it." "I don't need to prove it. I just need to make sure you don't do to me what you did to him." "I never touched Robert Walsh." "But you wanted to, and when the opportunity presented itself, you took it." "You're fishing." "Am I? Then why are you here?" Why didn't you just call the police and report my threats? Marcus didn't answer, which was answer enough. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to get in your car and drive away. You're going to keep driving until you're at least 500 miles from here. You're going to start a new life somewhere else, with someone else's wife. And if I don't, then Robert Walsh gets some company. You're bluffing. Robert thought the same thing. I stepped out from behind the tree, letting him see me clearly. For the first time, I wasn't holding a weapon. I didn't need one. You killed him, Marcus said. I defended myself, just like I'm defending myself now. You're insane. I'm methodical. There's a difference. Marcus raised his tool again, pointing it directly at my chest. I should shoot you right now. You could, but then you'd have to explain why you came here. You'd have to explain our relationship. You'd have to explain a lot of things that would make your life very complicated. It would be self-defense, would it? You came to an isolated location to meet a man you claim has been threatening you. You brought a tool. You could have called the police, but you didn't. How does that look to a jury? Marcus's hand was shaking now. He was realizing that he'd walked into a trap. What do you want? He asked. I want you to disappear, permanently. And I want you to take my wife with you. What? Danica has made her choice. She's destroyed our marriage for you. She's planning to destroy my relationship with my daughter for you. She's stolen money from our accounts for you. So take her. She won't just leave her daughter. She will if she believes staying is more dangerous than leaving. What are you talking about? I'm talking about making sure she understands the full consequences of her choices. I pulled out my phone and showed him a video. It was security footage from the Riverside Inn showing Danica and Marcus entering a room together. This is already uploaded to several cloud storage accounts, I said. If anything happens to me, it gets automatically sent to every contact in Danica's phone, her friends, her family, her coworkers, her daughter. That's blackmail. That's insurance. She'll never agree to leave Eliza. She will when I explain the alternative, which is a very public divorce proceeding where every detail of her affair becomes public record, where every penny she's stolen gets traced and documented, where every lie she's told gets exposed in court. Marcus lowered his tool completely. You've thought this through. I've had time to think. What if we refuse? What if we call your bluff? Then you find out whether I'm bluffing or not. We stared at each other across the darkness. Two men who'd never met before this week, now locked in a confrontation that would determine the rest of our lives. How do I know you won't come after us later? Marcus asked. Because once you're gone, my problem is solved. I don't care what happens to you after that. And Danica's daughter? Eliza stays with me, where she belongs. Danica will never agree to that. Danica will agree to whatever keeps her out of prison. Prison? Theft, fraud, filing false police reports. When I add up everything she's done over the past 8 months, the charges will be substantial. Marcus put his tool in his jacket pocket. How long do we have? 24 hours. Tomorrow night, both of you disappear. Permanently. Where are we supposed to go? That's your problem, but make sure it's far away. And if we don't, then this conversation becomes a police interview. And the next time someone asks about Robert Walsh, I'll have a lot more to tell them. Marcus walked back to his car without another word. As his taillights disappeared down the dirt road, I felt a familiar sense of calm settle over me. Phase 2 was complete. Now for the hardest part. The next evening, Danica came home from work looking exhausted and worried. She'd been trying to reach Marcus all day, according to the GPS tracking on her phone. He wasn't answering her calls or texts. Rough day? I asked as she walked into the kitchen. The usual, work drama. Anything I can help with? She looked at me suspiciously. Since when do you care about my work problems? I've always cared. You just haven't been sharing them with me lately. There's a reason for that. I'm sure there is. Eliza came downstairs as we were talking. Hey, Dad, can you help me with my college application essay tonight? Of course. What's it about? Family dynamics, how relationships shape who we become. Danica and I exchanged glances across the kitchen. Interesting topic, I said. I figure I should write about what I know, Eliza said. And I know a lot about family dynamics lately. After dinner, while Eliza was upstairs working on her essay, I sat with Danica in the living room. She was reading a magazine, but I could tell she wasn't really focused on it. Danica, I said, we need to talk. About what? About the fact that you filed for divorce yesterday. She went very still. How do you know that? The same way I know about Marcus Blaine. The same way I know about the money you've been transferring to your personal accounts. The same way I know about the fake medical records and the staged photographs. She set down her magazine and looked at me directly for the first time in weeks. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. You've been planning this for 8 months, building a case, documenting evidence, setting up the perfect exit strategy. You're paranoid. Am I? Then explain this. I pulled out a folder containing copies of everything I'd found in her filing cabinet. Bank statements, medical records, photographs, legal documents. Explain how a paranoid person could fake all of this evidence. Danica stared at the documents for a long moment. Where did you get these? From your office. Along with everything else you've been hiding from me. You went through my private files? Your private files detailing your plan to destroy my life? Yes, I went through them. I wasn't trying to destroy your life. I was trying to protect mine. From what? From a husband who loved you? From a father who worked his A off to provide for his family? From a man who was slowly becoming someone I didn't recognize? I never changed, Danica. You just stopped pretending to love me. That's not true, isn't it? When did you stop wearing your wedding ring to bed? When did you stop kissing me goodbye in the morning? When did you stop looking me in the eye when we talked? I don't know what you're talking about. You stopped 3 months ago, right around the time you met Marcus. Danica's composure finally cracked. You don't understand what my life has been like. Then explain it to me. You want everything to stay exactly the same forever. Same routine, same conversations, same boring existence year after year. I felt like I was suffocating. So you decided to have an affair. I decided to find someone who made me feel alive again, and to steal money from our accounts. I was protecting my future. Our future. It was our money, Danica. Money I earned working overtime so you could have the life you wanted. The life I wanted. I never wanted this life. I wanted adventure. I wanted passion. I wanted to feel like I mattered to someone. You mattered to me. No, I didn't. I was just part of your routine. Wake up, go to work, come home, watch TV, go to bed, day after day, year after year. Do you have any idea how soul-crushing that is? So you decided to crush my soul instead. I decided to save myself by destroying our daughter's family. Eliza will be fine. She's strong. She'll adapt. To what? To learning that her mother is a liar and a thief? To watching her father get painted as an abusive monster in court? If you'd just accepted the divorce quietly, none of this would have been necessary. If I'd just accepted being destroyed quietly, you mean? I never wanted to hurt you. You wanted to take everything I cared about. My home, my daughter, my reputation, my future. But you didn't want to hurt me. I wanted to start over, with Marcus Blaine. Yes, the man who's done this to at least 2 other families. What are you talking about? Marcus has a history, Danica. A history of seducing married women, draining their assets, and discarding them when things get complicated. That's not true. It's completely true. I have documentation. Robert Walsh, Jennifer Chen. Ring any bells? I don't know those names. You wouldn't, because Marcus is very careful about sharing his past with his current victims. I'm not a victim. Aren't you? How much money have you given him? I haven't given him anything. How much money have you transferred to accounts he has access to? Danica didn't answer. How much, Danica? $30,000. But it was for our future together. $30,000 from our daughter's college fund. We can replace it. With what? My income alone won't cover Eliza's tuition and our living expenses. That's not my problem anymore. It's about to become your problem again. What does that mean? It means Marcus is gone. Gone where? Just gone. Permanently. Danica stared at me. What did you do? I had a conversation with him, a very direct conversation. He decided it would be better for his health if he started over somewhere else. You threatened him. I explained the situation to him. Where is he? I have no idea. And neither will you. He wouldn't just leave without telling me. He would if staying meant risking his life. You killed him. I didn't have to. He was smart enough to understand the alternatives. Danica pulled out her phone and started dialing. I'm calling the police. And telling them what? That your married lover disappeared after your husband found out about your affair? That the man you've been stealing money for suddenly decided to leave town? I'll tell them you threatened him. With what evidence? Marcus won't be around to corroborate your story. And without him, you're just a cheating wife trying to blame her husband for her boyfriend's disappearance. Danica stared at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Fear mixed with hatred, mixed with something that might have been respect. What do you want? She asked. I want you to withdraw the divorce petition. Absolutely not. I want you to return the money you stole. It's not stealing. We're married. It's community property. I want you to tell Eliza the truth about what you've been doing. I'm not destroying my relationship with my daughter. Your relationship with our daughter was destroyed the moment you decided to betray this family. She doesn't need to know the details. She already knows the details. She's 17, not 7. She's seen the changes in you. She's noticed the lies. She's put the pieces together. That's impossible. She saw you with Marcus at the Riverside Inn. She heard you talking to Caleb about covering your tracks. She found the USB drive you hid in your jewelry box. What USB drive? The one containing backup copies of all your evidence against me. The one you labeled insurance. Very thorough documentation, by the way. Danica's face went white. She couldn't have. It was hidden. 17-year-olds are very good at finding things their parents try to hide. What did she see? Everything. The photographs you staged to make me look abusive, the fake medical records, the bank statements showing your theft, the correspondence with your lawyers. Oh, God. She also saw the videos you and Marcus made together. What videos? The ones on your phone, the ones you thought you'd deleted. Technology is wonderful, isn't it? Everything lives forever somewhere. Danica sat down heavily on the couch. She must hate me. She's confused, she's hurt, she's angry. But she doesn't hate you yet. Yet? Yet. But that could change, depending on what happens next. What do you want from me? I want you to leave. Leave. Tonight. Pack a bag and go. Don't come back. I'm not leaving my daughter. You're not taking her with you. She's my daughter too. Is she? Because a real mother doesn't destroy her child's family for a $30,000 fling with a fitness trainer. I love Eliza. You love the idea of Eliza, but you love yourself more. Otherwise, you never would have done any of this. I won't leave her. Then you'll force me to make this public, every detail, every photograph, every stolen dollar. I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person you really are. You wouldn't do that to Eliza. I'm not doing it to Eliza. You did it to Eliza when you decided to cheat on her father and steal her college money. She'll never forgive you if you destroy my reputation. She'll never forgive you for forcing me to. We stared at each other across the living room. 22 years of marriage reduced to this moment of mutual destruction. How long do I have? She asked finally. Tonight. That's not enough time. It's exactly as much time as you gave me when you filed for divorce yesterday. Where am I supposed to go? I don't care, but if you're smart, you'll go far away. Because if I ever see you again, if you ever try to contact Eliza again, if you ever try to come back here again, then everything I know about you becomes public knowledge. You can't keep me from my daughter forever. I can keep you from her until she's 18. After that, it's her choice whether she wants a relationship with the woman who abandoned her. I'm not abandoning her. I'm being forced out. You're being held accountable for your choices. Danica stood up slowly. You've become a monster. I've become exactly what you made me. I never wanted this. You wanted to destroy our family without consequences. That was never going to be an option. What am I supposed to tell people? Tell them whatever you want, but make sure your story doesn't contradict mine. Which is, you decided you wanted a different life. You left to pursue it. End of story. And if they ask about Marcus, Marcus who? I've never heard that name. Danica walked toward the stairs, then turned back. What about the divorce? What divorce? As far as I know, we're still married. You just decided to move out for a while. You can't force me to stay married to you. I can't force you to do anything. But I can make your life very unpleasant if you try to take anything else from me. This isn't over. Yes, it is. She went upstairs to pack. I could hear her moving around in our bedroom, opening drawers, closing suitcases. The sounds of a life being dismantled. 30 minutes later, she came back downstairs, carrying 2 bags. I'll need access to money, she said. You'll need to get a job. I have a right to financial support. You had that right. You forfeited it when you stole $30,000 from our accounts. I'll fight this. With what lawyer? You can't afford legal fees without access to our joint accounts. And I'll make sure any attorney you contact knows exactly what kind of case they'd be taking. Someone will help me. Maybe, but they'll want payment up front. And once they see the evidence against you, they'll want a lot of payment. Danica walked to the front door, then stopped. Can I say goodbye to Eliza? She's asleep. I know. But I want to see her one more time. That's not a good idea. She's my daughter. Then you should have thought about that before you destroyed her family. Danica's face crumpled. For a moment, she looked like the woman I'd married 22 years ago. Young and vulnerable and lost, but only for a moment. I hate you, she said. I know. I hope you're happy. I hope you're gone. She opened the door and stepped into the night. I watched from the window as she loaded her bags into her car and drove away. 22 years of marriage, ending with the sound of tires on asphalt. I sat in my living room for a long time, surrounded by the wreckage of the life I'd built. Everything was quiet. Everything was still. Everything was exactly the way I'd planned it. Upstairs, Eliza was sleeping peacefully, unaware that her mother had just walked out of her life forever. Tomorrow, I'd have to explain what had happened. I'd have to help her understand why sometimes people we love make choices that destroy everything we thought we knew about them.